Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Behind the Mic in the beautiful AAA studios here at MusicTown inside of Hockeytown, broadcasting live from downtown Detroit. So thank you for watching, all of you doing that online and through our HD3 channel. So thanks to AAA Studios, and of course, thanks to Children's Hospital of Michigan Foundation. Without those two sponsors, none of this would happen. So we appreciate that for both of those sponsors. As I do every week, I bring in musicians and we chat and hear some live music. And generally, I've been doing a lot of local stuff, but today I'm very, very excited. We have a national named artist here in our studios today. So welcome, Johnny Nicholas. Hi, Johnny.
Hi there. Thank you for having us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're going through town, and there's a lot to talk about, and we'll get to why you're in town and all of that. But just happy to have you in here to play for us today. So
Well, we're happy to be here.
well, good. And we got the whole gang here. So we got full band. And the sound check was great, just the little bit I heard. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of your music. So again, you're not from this area originally. You're from
I wasn't born here,
No,
but
right,
I
right.
spent a lot of time here.
yes. Because well, and let's just because people may not know who you are. I mean, once they hear your music or hear your story, they may go like, "Oh yeah, that sounds familiar" or whatever. But you've been doing this for quite some time,
Yes, ma'am.
and yeah, blues is your main thing. And
That's what I grew up with.
okay, you're from Rhode Island originally, correct?
I was born
Okay.
in Rhode Island. Uh-huh.
Somehow I don't connect Rhode Island and the blues. Maybe I missed something. I don't.
Well, yeah, it's kind of an unusual little pocket in New England up there, and for some reason there was a big interest in and a lot of blues in the atmosphere there. Duke Robillard and I went to school together.
Okay.
Room full of blues. All those guys grew up right in this one little area. Sugar Ray Norcia and Franny Christina, fabulous Thunderbirds. You know, Scotty Hamilton, great tenor sax player.
Okay.
All from Rhode Island. So
See, I kind of missed that. Of course, I grew up, in radio, in rock and roll. So a lot of the background of blues, I, didn't really follow as closely. So thank you. I got a nice little lesson there, which is kind of cool. It's amazing. I learned a lot of stuff doing this show. So thank you for that. But yeah, so like I said, when I saw that at first, I thought, Rhode Island and the blues. So how did you learn about the blues or get involved with it?
Well, when I was a kid, and I had a big brother who was really into music, and he had all the R&B stuff: Ray Charles, Little Richard, Lloyd Price, Little Walter, Howlin' Wolf. Because blues at that time had a real market, and it was so there were stations you could dial into, and they weren't hard to find that played all of that stuff.
So
Fats
just-
Domino, and then there were country stations too that were really popular, and then there were your pop stations, and there was actually some really good music even on pop radio in the days. A lot of it coming out of New Orleans. So it was just all right there. What I did after I heard I was listening to this stuff when I was a kid, and my brother, when I started learning how to play guitar, well, he thought that was really cool. So and he'd take me to his parties where all his friends were dancing and drinking, and and then he'd show me off. I'd get to play some songs, and I thought
Showing off
that
the little
was
brother,
really
that's cute,
really
yeah.
cool. So. Then I got me a little band when I was in high school and called the Vikings.
Oh,
And
yes.
Duke had a band called the Variations, and we used to have Battle of the Bands and, play at the high school dances and all that. Just like so many
Typical.
other people. Yeah, pretty typical.
yeah.
But, as quick as I got out of high school, I hit the road and went to try to find some of these cats that I was listening to, and I did. And that's what led me to Chicago and then Detroit, and the scene in Ann Arbor that was just an amazing music scene
Oh yeah, that was good.
in the late 60s, early 70s, up to through the 70s. There was a phenomenal scene. So I just gravitated to these places in the country where I could play music and make money, but also be around the kind of musicians that I dug, and there was a scene and a support group for the whole thing.
camaraderie, when you get into that, get involved with those people, then all of a sudden it just kind of, they know you and what you can do, and it kind of spreads out. Hey, I know so and so.
Yeah,
Hey, you can get Johnny so and so.
I mean, that's the way back in the day. I mean, you'd come around somebody that was a master, and that, you'd show them that you really were interested, and they'd kind of go, well, yeah, well, we'll see about that. But those guys that I come around, Roosevelt Sykes, Robert Jr. Lockwood, Johnny Shines, they weren't easy. I mean, and they'd bust your butt if they'd let you know. I mean, they were tough on you, but they wanted apprentices. Yeah, you want to pass your trade on. That's just the way that it was, and so they knew they had some putty in their hands when I came along, because I was just like, wow. I want to learn, and
they probably
and
appreciated
and then
that
I grabbed this guy over here.
Tino
he
Gross
was
back there on the drums.
He was just a kid.
Yeah, that's what I can imagine.
And I really dug. I could tell he had it, and so I brought him in and played with some of these guys, and then he recorded on that album, the reissue project we're doing.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
That's cool. Tino, how old were you about?
Teenage years.
Teenage, okay.
Teenage.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was funny what you just said. You was like, I'm going to go find these cats, and it was like, well, first of all, just saying that was just kind of put this image in my head. But, what do? Go backstage, or you just like go into the venue they're playing and just hang out? How do you get to actually
Well, I'll give
talk
you an
with them?
example, because the blues guys were much more accessible than the rock and roll guys, and they were more down to earth. And that made me feel really comfortable, because I was raised in a Greek family, and just just a real working class kind of thing, and the way the people enjoyed food and music, and just normal stuff that humans do,
Yeah.
But these guys, I'll give you one specific example. That Howlin' Wolf was I was worshipped Howlin' Wolf, and I found out he was playing in New York City, and I made a trip down there, and told my parents a little story. I told them I was going to, because I was still in high school. I told them I was going to stay with my two great aunts who were spinsters, and I went and checked in with them, and they fed me and everything. And then I told them that I was staying with a cousin, And so anyway, where I was staying was the Albert Hotel, where Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and all these cats were in town playing. But I hadn't met Wolf yet, so I went to the club, and I was there. I walked in, and it was just afternoon, and someone was on stage messing with getting the stuff set up, and it was Hubert Sumlin. He became a very dear friend. But that day, I was just there, and he said, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I came to see the Wolf." "Oh, yeah, well, come." He said, "Well, we start talking." He said, "Well, come on, where you got? You got a place to stay?" I said, "No, not really." He said, "Come on down to the hotel. Cotton's down there, and the Otis Span, and all these cats were in town. They were staying there." So I went down, and it was like, they just took me in, and so that night I went back and saw the Wolf, and he completely blew my mind, and then went back to the hotel that night. We stayed there for a week, and then I got to meet Wolf, and I met Otis Spann, and this was just like the.
Do you think that kind of was a change in the direction you went with your music? Do you think that was
would be
a
an
pivotal point?
understatement? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well-
it completely, changed my life,
Yeah.
and it was in a really good way,
Well, yeah.
reaffirming a lot of things that, but also solidified what I dug about those cats' music. It really made sense with who they were and the way they were as people, and that carried through with all the guys that spider webbed out from there, all the guys that I met, through those guys.
Yeah, it's so and so is connected to so and so, and before
Yeah.
you know it, you're part of
Yeah.
it. Yeah, cool story. Did your mom ever find out that you weren't where you said you were?
No, she knew better than to ask, I think. But
That's funny. You know, you got to do what you got to do, you know, and you were obviously on a mission,
Oh, yeah.
you know, whatever it took, whatever you had to say to get there. So good for you, because that was probably a very important time in
Yeah,
your
it was.
musical
It
career.
really
So,
was. Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. All right, I tell you what, we need to hear a song.
All right.
Tino's just getting a little too relaxed back there. It's like, okay.
Well, this one, Big Walter Horton and I wrote, and it was one of the cuts that we discovered when we got all the tapes back from Blind Pig Records,
Okay.
and it's called "Move On Down the Line."
Behind the mic.
Patches on my pockets, holes in my shoe. Know about that? I got the original walking blues. I got to move on down the line. I got to move, baby. Move on down the line. You know I'm tired, feeling like an old flat tire. My burden's heavy, my feet's on fire. I got to move on down the line. I got to move, baby. Move on down the line. On in here, Scrappy. I'm gonna tell you something, mama. Gonna tell you true. If you don't want me, it's a cinch I don't want you. I'm gonna move on down the line. I got to move, baby. Move on down the line. I got to move, baby. Move on down the line.
Nice. Woo. Johnny Nicholas in here along with bandmates. We, of course, we already said hi to Tino Gross back there. And we'll be remiss in mentioning who the other two players are. So here on guitar we have Scrappy, right? You call it
Yes,
Scrappy,
sure.
Scrappy Joe.
Jumpy Judd.
Judd. All right, and
J-U-D.
Judd. I'm sorry.
All right.
Guitar and helping out on vocals there.
Yeah.
How long have you been with Johnny playing with?
Oh, close to 10 years.
Okay. Okay.
Right around that. Right around that. Yeah, we had some mutual friends back in Austin that we met through and
Okay.
sort of slowly started playing more and more together.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good. Sounding good. Adding to that very well. And then we have Tony Gagne.
Yeah.
And Tony, and I know you cannot talk about Dylan, but it would be a worst thing if I didn't mention that you've been with Bob Dylan playing for over 30 some years with Bob Dylan.
20.
But okay, pretty close. Okay, so been doing that with as bass. So that's. And are you still playing with Bob at this point or no?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Very much.
Okay, good. Well, welcome and glad to have you in here. And so, how long have you been playing with Johnny?
Since 73.
Okay, long time. Long time.
Something like
Your cat's here. You know?
Oh, yeah.
That's cool that you have the guys. And together, you guys really sound good. So when you're playing, do you take these guys all over the place with you? I know
Yeah,
Tony.
we've been together a long time.
Okay.
And we rehearsed for, well, let's see, we haven't rehearsed, but we've been together a long time, about 24 hours.
Oh. Okay.
No,
Well,
but
that
thing-
sounds
no,
damn
the
good for
thing
only
is-
24 hours.
No, the thing is, we do. Like I
Yeah.
said, Tony, we go back to the early 70s. Tino to the when I met Tino was mid 70s.
Gee, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, somewhere
Long
in there.
time.
So, you
Yeah.
know, we've got a lot of experience together, yeah.
So, and you mentioned this earlier, so I want to go back to that. Of course, you really got into the scene in Ann Arbor. I mean, it was really, Ann Arbor is so cool, and the music scene there is just amazing, with
it
everything
was-
they've done there. So that you kind of came here for the Blues Fest. It was their first one, wasn't it?
I came to the one, the Blues Festival in 69 and 70.
Okay.
And those were just phenomenal. And I've been told that those were the first blues festivals in the country. I know that Newport had been around, but it wasn't officially a blues festival. They had a lot of blues, but I think that that's what I'm told. And
Well,
that
we'll go with that. That
John
sounds good.
Fishel. There was another guy that passed it on to John, but those guys started the thing. And then there was a year, so we saw that. I saw that. We came out from Rhode Island. I had this band with Duke and Franny and Slow Drag and Steve Nardella and in Rhode Island. And we came out to the 1970 festival. Just blew us away. And so Black Cat was the name of our band back in Providence, Rhode Island. I had moved back out there to form that, to join up with those guys. And so then at that time, Duke was really getting into the horns and Buddy Johnson and all that great jump blues stuff. And so he wanted to reform Roomful of Blues. And Steve and I, and then Franny came a couple months later, but we hopped the fence and stuck our thumbs out and hitchhiked to Ann Arbor. And I mean, we worked 7 nights a week, man. It was an incredible scene. There were so many great places. And then all the cats from Chicago, I started bringing up guys that I knew. There were other people coming through. You had all the great Detroit guys like Eddie Burns and Bobo Jenkins, Boogie Woogie Red, who became a dear friend. Calvin Frazier, who was an incredible guitar player. You remember Calvin? Did you ever meet him, man? Yeah, because Calvin Frazier was related to Robert Johnson.
Oh.
And he was very close with Robert Johnson. And Robert Lockwood Jr. is the guy that hipped me to Calvin Frazier. But a lot of people don't know it. But Sonny Boy Williamson spent a lot of time in Detroit and played in the clubs in Detroit. Some great stories. With Baby Boy and Boogie Woogie Red, yeah. And, so Detroit had such a cool scene. It's just they didn't have the record like Chess Records or the support to that these cats could, Dr. Ross, Isaiah Ross he's the guy, and no offense to John Lee Hooker, but Dr. Ross was the guy that invented the boogie thing that John Lee Hooker borrowed, or it was. We all
never heard
borrow
that.
stuff, we
Oh, yeah,
do that,
yeah.
and that's the way that stuff works. But Dr. Ross was the man, and
We
he
heard
would
it
play.
here.
He would play it at Mr. Flood's party on Monday nights, and he played his guitar upside down and his harmonica upside down, and he had a bass drum and a hi-hat. He was like a one-man band, And he boogied so hard that he would literally, at the end of the night, it was like the crowd would just melt down. They'd all be a puddle on the floor. Everybody just like, it was so incredible, man. He was so cool. Lightning Slim had moved up here from Baton Rouge. He lived up in Pontiac, as he said. Him and his wife, Sarah. And so, we backed all these guys up. I mean, it was just like a dream. But it really was a special. There were very few places like that in the country.
Yeah.
What happened in Ann Arbor,
Right.
and and this whole scene. John Sinclair was a great friend and patron of the arts, and Bill Kirchin, who was with Commander Cody. I was connected with those guys. Bob Seger, what a sweetheart, and all these cats, the rock guys, were really hip to the blues, and and Tino knows more about that than I do. But I know all those guys. Whenever they'd come around where we were playing, it was like one big family because it was the same language. Everybody spoke the same.
Well, the
language,
rock came out of the blues.
Detroit Wheels.
Detroit. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
come around the Rockets.
Yeah.
McCarty, Johnny B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is cool. Like some good stories there, and I could see you're kind of a little twinkle in your eye. You just like you're remembering all these great moments throughout
Oh,
your
man.
career. Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
You could see.
And a lot of them in Ann Arbor, I'll tell you.
How long were you then? How long did you stay in Ann Arbor?
Well, I had a little home base out on Platte Road, out on the edge
yeah.
of town,
Yeah.
called the Apple Grove, and it was just a shack. And my buddy Tom Stevenson and I stayed there. And then all the cats, when they'd come into town, it became home base, so they'd all come and stay there. I had
Okay.
an old beat-up piano. Tom had a 1951 Vincent Black Shadow motorcycle in parts, mainly in the middle of the kitchen floor, and but it was a great little scene. So I'd take off for South Louisiana or Austin or the East Coast or California, wherever there was something happening, and he kind of held it down. So I'd say I was in Ann Arbor from 1970 to about 75 and 76, because I finished that Blind Pig album. It came out in 77. But in the meantime, in between, like I said, I'd go to Lake Charles and South Louisiana with Link Davis, and over to Austin, Texas, and down to New Orleans, just wherever
Sounds like
the
the life
music
of a
was
musician.
happening.
Yeah, go where
Yeah.
you can and play, and
Yeah.
That's very cool. That is cool.
Yeah.
I love it. The fact that Ann Arbor was such a big part of your, musical
Well,
history. So,
yeah,
very cool.
It should be recognized more,
Well, people, do realize it. I mean, of course, the Ark, when we were talking about that too, your big show there. But it is a music town, and people realize that. And of course, with the University of Michigan there, we get, from all over the world, people are there, so they bring their music as well, but it's more exposure as well. So that's probably part of why Ann Arbor is so cool with the music scene. So I think we need another song. Tino's getting relaxed again back there.
Well, I'm enjoying hearing
No, I know these are great. Oh, these are great. All right,
Well, I consider myself a troubadour, and I like to tell stories and write songs, and this one is one that came to me from a experience I had at a little place down in South Louisiana, where Tony also played. We played there together with the Wheel. Before you left, there was one time, but
Played at Jay's.
at Jay's, yeah.
Jay's
But
Lounge and Cockpit.
yeah, but Tony had been there previous. I was there. We played there a bunch, Jay's Lounge and Cockpit.
interesting name. Okay.
Yeah. Well, what do you think the cockpit was?
Well, I was hoping a plane.
No.
No? Okay.
Nothing to do with an airplane.
Okay.
They had cockfights, roosters,
really?
fighting roosters in the back.
And while you were playing?
Yeah. You could go in the back and bet on the
Okay.
on the roosters, or you could dance out front.
Oh, that's funny.
It was actually legal too at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, it was totally
In
legal.
that parish.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's still going on. It's just not legal.
Right. Okay.
But anyhow,
Don't tell us, yeah.
we were, we'd play there, and then Marie Saucier, the lady that owned it, she would fix chicken and sausage gumbo for the bands at the end of the night.
Oh, fun.
And we always asked her if we were eating the losers,
Oh.
You know, it was actually Jay's song. Jay was the one who
Yeah,
made Gumbo.
you're right.
Jay's Gumbo.
Yeah.
I learned from him.
Did she
how to
ever-
make gumbo.
Did she ever answer that question? No.
She said, "Oh, John, don't talk like that."
Okay, let's hear a song.
All right. Well, this
funny.
one started out right on the dance floor at Jay's Lounge, and this is mostly a. This one's a pretty true song, based in fact. I met a little girl down at the Fado. She told me that her name was Jeanette Como. She had a new ex-boyfriend and a gun in her purse. She told me, you can have me for better or worse. She said, those things you heard about me, Lord, I swear they ain't true. I might have known right then she'd leave me with those Bayou Blues. She took me to her cabin just south of Abbeville. The way she called my name gave me such a thrill. There were empires in the front yard right up to my knees. Spanish moss hanging down from the live oak tree like a long black wave of hair. She had a secret tattoo. Just using my imagination, I was thinking about those Bayou Blues. Now, this is where the story gets interesting, people. See, this was something that I had never seen before. There were alligators swimming right up to the front door. She fixed me a plate of sauce piquant. She said, the meat is fresh. I just killed it this morning. She sure could cook, and I had nothing to lose. We danced all night, rocking to those Bayou Blues. Next thing I knew, the sunlight was dancing on the floor, and the new ex-boyfriend was knocking on the front door. She was reaching for her gun and I was reaching for my clothes. I lit out the back door, I was moving on down the road. I heard some loud conversation and a gunshot or two. Every time I think about her, I get those Bayou Blues. Bye, 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 bye. Sweet Jeanette, I can't forget you. Bye, 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 you. Oh, baby, way down on the bayou. Bye, 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 you. Oh, way down on the bayou. Bye, 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 you.
Nice. Johnny Nicholas here with band members. Ah, goodness. Good stuff. Good stuff. You mentioned Wheel, and so I want to bring that up as well. You were part of Asleep at the Wheel band.
I joined Asleep at the Wheel in 1978, and Tony and I were roommates. But he was on his getting ready to go to New York. A couple of the Leroy Preston and Floyd were leaving, and that was really unfair. They hired me to replace Leroy and Floyd, and nobody could replace either one of those guys. But anyhow, Tony was in the band. I don't know, about 3, 4, 5, about half a year.
Yeah, about 6 months.
About 6 months, and then he moved on to New York, but yeah, I was in the band when they won the first Grammy Award.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we recorded "Served Live," and that was nominated for a Grammy. I was not on the Texas Gold album. That's the one that had 1 O'Clock Jump, right?
Collision course.
Collision Course. That's right. You're right. That's right. Yeah.
Keep track of it all because they have a lot of.
Me and you.
Lot of These two are like trying to go, oh yeah, this one, yeah. Going back and remembering it because they have a lot of albums out, if I remember, quite a few.
When I had moved to New York, I remember getting the Grammy in the mail.
Yeah,
And
in the mail.
guy who was the super of my building was so impressed that I got free rent for a year. No, I didn't.
That would have been good, yeah.
No,
They just
doubled my
mailed you
rent.
the Grammy. That seems,
6 months in advance.
yeah, really.
From $2.95 to $4.50.
Yeah, there you go. You can afford it now. You have a Grammy. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Well, very cool. And so I want to make sure that, of course, you are in town playing a few shows, and you're. It's kind of like a release of your album show to the whole the very first album, right?
Yeah,
This was your
it's
first one?
but it's grown. When we got the tapes back, we've discovered all these unreleased performances. So
Cool.
it's grown into something much. I mean, the original album was released on vinyl, and then they cut it out shortly after when I joined Asleep at the Wheel,
Oh, okay.
because they said I wasn't touring under my own name, which didn't make sense. But anyhow, it took
labels.
me years to get the tapes back, and when I did, I found we found 20 songs that different, not just outtakes, but just different stuff, and I had no recollection of recording any of that.
Really?
Yeah.
That's got to be cool though when you hear something back that you did years ago, and what was your first initial thought when you heard these things? I mean,
Well,
what
first I
went through your
had to
head?
double check and make sure it was really me.
Oh, okay. Okay, check. That's good. Now and then what?
Well, I was amazed. I mean, Bruce Hughes called me up. He goes, "Hey, man, you said there was only one extra song on here?" He said, and I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, man, you need to listen to this stuff." Because I hadn't listened to the transfers yet. He got them from Bill Johnson right away. And then, I said, "Man, I know there's one song that we'll have an alternate take, like one, not alternate, but one bonus track, right?"
Yeah.
And then it turned out to be a whole
Interesting.
album's worth of bonus tracks. Some really cool stuff with some of the legends of the blues, Big Walter Horton, Johnny Shines.
Nice.
And of course the sessions we did in Texas with Tony and the Wheel right after they had moved to Texas, and that whole synergy thing was happening with just all these different scenes. Oakland, California, that's where I met the Wheel, and that's where Tony was living when he joined the Wheel.
So you're listening to this, and I'm just imagining. So you're listening to this, and at this point, you already know you're going to release it, right?
Gonna what?
Release it again.
Oh, you
re-release
should
it.
see the package. It's
It's
incredible.
double disc, right?
It's a double,
Okay.
plus the vinyl release will be ready in a couple of weeks. And the girls that are doing the album cover design. I've known them for a long time. They're very talented. They've actually won 2 Grammys for album cover design, backstage design, and they started. I said, yeah, let's do a little package on this, and they started looking at all the stuff I had, all this memorabilia and these posters and photos with all these people from over the years, and they said, Johnny, this is amazing. We want to go further with this, and I said, yeah, well, go ahead.
Okay, so there's a full booklet with all
72 pages.
Wow, that's
Posters, ticket stubs. I mean, it's all music history. It's
I
amazing.
was just gonna say, this is almost like your history.
Well, yeah, but it's
back.
much bigger than that. Yeah, it's mine, which is pretty cool, but it's
Yeah.
also, it's Big Walter Horton, it's Johnny Shines, it's Roosevelt Sykes. I mean, the other people that are intertwined in there, it's Bonnie Raitt, all my friends. I mean, people that I kind of grew up doing this with. Mississippi Fred McDowell, Houston Stackhouse, Lightning Slim.
Wow.
I mean, it's just phenomenal, you know.
This is really cool. That
It's very
now
cool.
you
It's
get
and
to put out.
it's the vinyl thing is a trifold with this book. I mean, it's something you'd want to have on your coffee table. It's like
Well, 72 pages. It's got to be a thick book.
Well, yeah, it's pretty.
Pretty
And
thick.
there's all these little things. There's like letters. There's like a letter that Robert Jr. Lockwood wrote to me, and he had a typewriter and typed it. And it's just this amazing letter, and that's been replicated. So you open a page, and there you can look at the Robert
neat.
Lockwood letter, and you can look. There's a letter from Winona Judd, because I named her Winona.
You named her?
Uh-huh. Her name was Christina.
Really?
Yeah. So that's another story.
Yeah.
I got a lot of stories.
Yes, you do. Did you ever think of putting a book out?
Yeah, well, we kind
I
of
mean, other than
are.
this
Yeah,
is kind
yeah.
of like a trial run and
This
the
is- yeah, I
start
guess
of it.
this would
So
be the start,
I'm
yeah.
sure you could fill a full page,
Yeah,
full
probably could. yeah.
autobiography, and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're going to leave me hanging on the name here, are you?
You want me to tell you the
Go
whole
for
story?
it. I mean, why not?
Oh, okay, sure.
I'm
Because
sure
it's going
people
to be
listening are
out.
going, well, yeah, hello.
Well, I kept it. I never shared this with anybody for years because I didn't want to capitalize on my relationship with her and with Naomi. And I was Naomi. I was dating her and seeing her, and during that time when I was with the Wheel, she lived in California, and I was up at their house, and Christina was about 15 at the time. And so I was teaching her how to play guitar. She was learning how to play guitar and sing and stuff. And so Naomi told me one day, she said, Christina's really talented, and she's going to be special. She's going to be, I think she's going to be famous. And I said, yeah, I think she's got it, And she said, well, but she said she needs a stage name. I said, well, let me think about that. And so a couple of weeks later, I left to join the band, and we were playing up at the Shy Clown. Remember that place, man? In Reno. Yeah. And we always stayed at the sweetest motel in Truckee, right on the Truckee River. Had the best little restaurant and everything. But anyhow, Naomi drove up a couple of weeks later in her red 57 Chevy to come up and spend a few days. And so I had thought about it, and I said, because Christina, even when she was young, she really loved the blues stuff. She'd say, man, Johnny, play that blues song, play that blues stuff. She really dug the blues, And when she'd sing, she was really, she was kind of put it out there. And I was like, wow, man. So I thought about Wynonie Harris. And he was a great blues shouter, R&B guy in the 40s and 50s. And the counterpart in the black community, there was a lot of women who were named Winona. Winona Carr was a famous piano player, jazz and boogie woogie piano player, and so I just said, yeah, Winona. And I told Naomi, and she said, oh, I really like that, So she said, well, let me see what Christina thinks. And so anyhow, we went on our way, and about a month later or so later, I was back in Austin, and I got a card, and it was like all hand decorated, the outside of the envelope and the inside the card, and it said, "Dear Johnny, my favorite person. Everybody loves my new name. Don't ever forget that you gave me that name,"
Yes,
and
that's
blah
cool.
blah blah, and Winona, and she had I mean, it was really sweet. It was a Valentine's card, and she had little hearts and lips and everything on it that she did with her hand, and I just saved that card. So years later, this rumor got around because that people go, well, how did she get named? And she kind of knew, but you know how things happen, and those girls were, you know, then got famous and all this stuff. So the story came about that she had been named about the town in California in the song Route
And you're going,
66.
no.
Because we were connected with, you know, I sang Route 66,
Yeah,
and they knew there was a connection between me and Naomi. Don't forget Winona. Well, that had nothing to do with it, but that story was propagated and put out there, and it stuck. It's even in that new podcast, kind of that Cocaine and Rhinestones podcast on the Judds. But all of that's fixing to change because I talked to Winona last winter. I said, you know, this thing needs to be out. It's too significant, and we talked about it. She said, yeah, you know, I know that story about Route 66. That didn't sound right. I said, well, let me send you something. So I took pictures of the card and sent it to her, and she said, oh, my God, I remember when I was blah, blah, blah. And she said, that's so cool. And I told her about Winona Harris, and she Googled him up and checked it out, and she flipped. She loved him, you know, and she was like, oh, she was so happy. And I said, yeah, aren't you glad you weren't named after some diddly little town in California named Winona? Nothing against Winona, the town, but it had nothing to do with her
name.
name.
I'm glad you said it straight. That is cool.
And the card is now going to be, it's in Nashville. It's going to be in the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Fun.
With the Judds exhibit that starts later this month.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, good for you. I'm glad it was said straight. Get the record straight.
It's a good story, you know.
All right. I do this at all of my interviews. It's called the Pam exam, and I just pull out random questions. So just, you know, just answer top of your head, whatever comes up. So, what is your most memorable music moment? And I'm sure you have a zillion, but
most memorable music moment. Okay, I'll tell you that. I was playing at Tipitina's in New Orleans, and with my band, the Rhythm Rockers, with Sarah Brown and Kaz Kazanoff, Ronnie Earl on guitar, and Terry Bingham on drums. And they had an old piano, like I was beyond stage here, and the piano was back here upright. So I played piano in the first set, and then I switched to guitar, and we started the second set, and I was up there playing, and we had done one song, and we got into the second song, and all of a sudden I heard someone playing the piano. And I after about 3 notes, I didn't even look around because I knew exactly who it was. It was Alan Toussaint. And I didn't, he was so distinctive, his style, and he just got up and started playing. And he played the whole set. And we had just this amazing, it was, yeah, there's been some other great moments, but that one was so incredible. And we got done playing, and it was so natural, man. We just did our thing, you know, and everybody was grooving, you know, and we got off the stage, and the owner, Tips, come up, and he goes, oh, man, you know what just happened? I said, yeah, man, Alan Toussaint. Okay. He said, no, you don't understand. He's been here 100 times, and this is only the second time he's ever gotten on stage. Wow. He said the other time was for Professor Longhair's birthday, and I was really honored. You know?
Really? That is cool.
Yeah.
Ooh, that is a good moment.
Very,
yeah. And interesting that you knew who it was right away. I mean, you know, distinctive.
He had that sound. It was just so. I mean,
that is cool. Ooh, I like that one. All right, what is your go-to song to sing while in your shower?
In the shower?
Yeah.
I do this kind of, it's kind of a combination of Delta blues and chanting, you know, kind of.
Okay.
It's just real primitive. You wouldn't want to hear it.
I was just ready to say, can we hear a little bit of it?
No.
Okay, we have to be in your shower with you then to hear this.
It's really kind of like a.
Okay.
It's just kind of a, you know, kind of a om.
Okay.
And then kind of moving that around and thinking about, and just kind of, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's not a very good answer. I mean,
no,
not
it's,
like
it's different. No, Everyone's
Yeah,
got their
it's
own
not
thing,
like-
you know. I'm not going to judge.
You know, hey, hey, we're the monkeys or something.
All right. What is your favorite food and beverage of choice? And I think I know your beverage already, but we
Tequila.
yeah, before the mic.
Favorite food is
He
duck.
pulls out the tequila.
Favorite
things.
food is duck confit.
Say again.
Duck confit.
Okay. Not familiar.
Well, you take a duck leg and you boil it in duck fat. You cook it in duck fat
Okay.
until it gets real tender. Takes a while. And then you take the duck leg out.
Okay.
Okay, and then you take that and you put it in a cast iron skillet and you make it crispy. And the duck is salted, you know. And I already have my tombstone picked out. It says, the duck confit killed him, and he didn't mind dying. That's my favorite food.
Okay.
One of them.
All right. Never heard of that. Oh my gosh. It's like, is he kidding me or what? Is he pulling my leg right now? Oh my God. You stop it. Okay.
No, I'm real serious, man. It's that good.
Okay. Wow.
And the duck's alive the whole time.
There's some tequila, too.
Have you ever had a frightening moment on stage?
Oh, I've had lots of frightening moments, yeah.
What was like the worst? Do you remember? Right. No,
Uh,
not right now. Hey, Tony.
Well, one of them happened when I was playing at this lounge in East Cambridge, Massachusetts. And this place was a front for a numbers racket. And I had my amp. I had a Vibrolux amp set up on a chair. And there were the windows behind me and then the door here, you know, those bay window kind of things you see on old. And there had been a lot of, there was a lot of people there was a lot of shady characters in that place. And one night there was a fight. And guy pulled out a gun. He was outside
Oh.
and shot this guy, shot him in the leg, and shot a couple times. But one of the bullets came through the window, and I was still in the back of my amp. It lodged in the amp, and if I wouldn't have had the amp up on my chair,
Holy.
it
oh
would have
my
hit me right
gosh.
about here. You know?
Don't get rid of that amp.
No, that amp, no.
It's the bullet still in the amp.
Yeah,
Oh, wow. Wow,
Yeah.
that would be scary.
it was scary, but there were many more.
Well, you've been doing this a long time, so, you know.
Yeah.
And some of the cats that you were mentioning earlier, I'm sure you had some experiences with those, too.
Oh, yeah. We had one
yeah.
experience going to Canada with Big Walter Horton. I was telling the guys driving to Canada, and halfway across the bridge, Walter said, hey, we got to go into the customs? I said, yeah, Walter, we're going to Toronto. We got to go into Canada. Oh, man, well, you know, I got my piece with me.
Oh, jeez.
I'm like, Walter, you can't take your gun into Canada, man. We'll go to jail, you know. Oh, man, they won't. I'll stick it under the seat. I said, this is my car, man. That don't work.
Wait a minute, yeah.
So, anyhow, I stopped in the middle of the bridge. And pull on the side as far as I could. I said, come on, man. I can throw. No, man, he didn't want to get rid of his gun. I paid $27 for this down in Maxwell Street, man. And I said, I'm sorry, Walter. I threw the gun in the river.
And on your way to Canada, you went.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. What is your guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure.
Duck confit.
Yeah, well, yeah. Man, I guess. See, I love my cup of coffee, and the thing that I've discovered that I really, really dig is molasses. So molasses and cream in my coffee, because
Really?
usually I like my coffee black, but then in the
Interesting.
morning I like that. Molasses and coffee just go good together.
I've never heard that. I'm
Yeah,
interested.
check it out. I didn't
Interesting.
either. I didn't.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
the only reason I tried it was because I ran out of honey. You know? And so I
Whatever
have this
works.
jar of molasses from down there in Abbeville at Steen's. You know, like Steen's molasses. Tony's from Louisiana. He knows all this stuff.
Oh, funny.
And so yeah, that's
Okay.
one. And
All right.
Yeah.
We need another song.
Okay.
I could talk for hours with you, but we need another song.
Well, yeah, and
What are we playing tonight?
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that too. Yeah, we got to make sure everyone knows where
Okay,
to
good.
see you. Thanks, Scrappy.
Sure. Yeah. I actually was just curious too.
You don't know.
Yeah.
I know it's early for musicians. I know.
All this coffee talk's getting me.
So, Pam, this is the title song off my last album, not the reissue, but
Okay.
called Fresh Air. And anyhow, these songs today are all original songs. I was encouraged, well, the guys that I told you about that I learned from, especially Robert Jr. Lockwood, he said, look, man, you don't need to be copying Little Walter or Muddy Waters. He said, you're Johnny Nicholas. He said, you write your own songs, tell your own. So Roosevelt, Sykes, those guys, they pushed me, and
They
and
saw
then later
something.
on, our dear friend Stephen Burton, he was a big inspiration. This is called Fresh Air. I could use a little fresh air. Turn the radio up in your car. I could use a little tender love and care, and wish upon a fallen star. If you care, get out and find yourself some fresh air. Now the river's invitation, it's a mighty fine temptation. Believe I sit right down and watch the waters flow. Paper ships drift by 'neath the Louisiana sky, and the captain's dream finds refuge at your door. He could use a little fresh air. I believe he's been at sea too long. Freedom's voice is like an icy stare, filled with an emptiness that you can't bear. Open up your heart and find your own fresh air. the circle be unbroken? What kind of words be spoken as the windows start to open everywhere? Will the words that you can't find ever escape your mind and blossom in your garden of despair? Can't you use a little fresh air? Open up the door that gets you there. Take a stroll down along the railroad track. Let the freight train whistle take you back to a place where you can find your own fresh air.
Sweet. Nice. That was great. That was great. I got to make sure we know people can see you. You're in town again, like we said. So tonight, is it tonight that you're at 20 Front Street? Is that tonight?
Yes.
Okay. What time is
And that's
showtime?
in
Lake Orion.
Orion.
Orion, not like
Yeah, I
Orion,
know.
the
See, I
star.
learned
We're in
that
Lake
too.
Orion.
Yeah, Lake
Yes.
Orion. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know time that start? 7:30. Okay. Get there early. Whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. So that'd be a good show. And are you going to have the releases there? The vinyl
Oh
release?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We've
Perfect.
got the Too Many Bad Habits T-shirts with the
Perfect.
turntable on them that are really cool.
Oh, cool.
And we have a mock-up of the not a mock-up, but the first proof of the whole package with the 72 pages. We do have the CD, the double disc
Okay.
CD, which has
Okay.
a 30-page book in it. It's got most of that stuff in it.
Okay.
And other CDs and cool stuff.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
and people can also sign up to be on the email list so they know where we're playing.
Okay.
Because I'm planning and hoping to be coming back up
Oh,
to
good.
Detroit
Good.
and Ann Arbor.
Well, you know what? You do that. We'll get you
area.
back here because I know there's a lot more stories in there that we want to hear.
Oh yeah,
So
we got
yeah.
a lot of them.
Oh, I bet. I bet. All right. So tonight, 20 Front Street in Lake Orion, and then are you doing the Arc as well? Or
We did play
We
the
did-
Arc
you
last
played
night.
last night.
And had
Okay,
a
I'm
great
sorry.
show and
Yeah.
had a
Tomorrow's
great
a
time.
Backyard barbecue party
backyard barbecue party?
at PJ's house from who owns the Lager House.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, is this open to the public?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
in Indian Village, Detroit.
Okay.
And, we'll post the actual
Okay.
address.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's going to be
Okay.
a lot of fun. So yeah, two
Yeah.
shows.
Awesome. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you, Johnny, for coming in. And it was the music is amazing. First of all, well, you've been doing this a while, and you're pro, you know. And of course, we've got Tony Gagne on the bass there, Tino Gross on the drums, and Scrappy Judd on
Scrappy Judd Newcomb.
Newcomb.
Yeah,
Newcomb.
Oh,
Didn't-
yeah, mandolin and guitar.
Yeah, and backup vocals as well. Did some vocaling there as well. So, sounds good. So make sure you go tonight, and it'll be a really good show. And thank you again for coming in. I do appreciate that. It's been absolutely a thrill.
Yeah, and how do we get people to take this so we can share it with other?
Yeah, it was on.
Thank
It's right now Facebook Live, and you can just go back onto our MusicTown Detroit Facebook and share it there. And yeah,
Yeah,
and
you got to understand. When I was growing up, they didn't
Oh,
even
yeah,
have
none of
cell
that, yeah.
phones. All right.
Yeah, no, exactly. All right. Well, thank you again. Yeah, exactly. We are, all of us are in the same boat. Again, thanks to AAA. We are broadcasting live from our AAA studios here at MusicTown inside of Hockeytown. And thanks to Children's Hospital of Michigan Foundation. We appreciate those two sponsors so we can do this each and every week. So, again, thanks to all of you watching. Do appreciate that. I'm Pam Rossi. Have a great week.
Pam.
Thank